Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the Venn Pod. We are your hosts, Hannah and Alex, and we are so happy to be with you for another episode of All Things Clarinet from your favorite newest clarinet duo on the block. Alex, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm kind of tired, so I'm trying to channel some energy right now. But Hannah and I were just talking because I thought I could drink a Dr. Pepper and make things better. But that's not the case because I'm not a fan. And I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but I'm just not a fan.
Wrong kind of doctor, Alex. So you can't go to that doctor to fix your problems.
Literally, do not go to Dr. Pepper to fix your problems.
Even though it's the sweet one, don't do it. It's not worth it.
It's so nasty. But anyways, let's get into the topic for today, Hannah. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So today we're going to talk about what you should do when you don't want to practice, right? Like it's summer, school is out, we are done for the year, which is such a great feeling. We have more free time, the weather is beautiful, all of our friends are like hanging out, doing like fun summer things, and the last place we want to be is probably in our rooms shredding over some passage that we need to work on. So we're going to talk about number one, what to do when you don't feel like practicing. Number two, how our summer practice looks. And then number three, some things that you can do instead of practicing, which can actually help your practice without you even realizing it. So.
And I should probably say this, we're going to be talking about it from our point of view. So like it's not our way or no way. It's kind of like this is what we've done in our journey while exploring music or being involved in music. So if you don't really like our take on it, that's okay because everybody has their own preference, but we just want to share what we've done in these instances.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we just get rid of the stigma of burnout for a second? Like, can we just address that up front? Because we're going to be talking about that a lot today.
Yeah.
And like, let's talk about that because I know that you've experienced that. I mean, I have too, but I know that you've experienced that recently, Alex, just coming off of a recital, coming off of graduating, coming off of like your exams for your master's. Like that was a really intense period of time for you. And coming out of it, you felt some burnout. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so like Hannah said, the stigma about burnout and like it kind of being a thing you have to put underneath a rug and not talk about it. I'm not that person. I've been very open, even while being on social media, about the times where I just don't want to practice. And I think people look at that and they're like, oh, wow, it's like someone they kind of follow and someone who's upfront about saying, I don't want to practice. And it's crazy that that's like a point of view that someone could even have because it's like, of course we don't feel like practicing. And what's the problem with like admitting that? So like Hannah said, I had a lot going on this past semester and I needed a break and I didn't know I needed a break, but it just so happened that things aligned perfectly where I had my recital and then I had graduation. So my family was in town after both of those things. And when they're in town, I typically cannot practice because I'm like catering to them. So having like literally a week off after both of those things, so like 2 weeks, I would honestly say that's the most time I've taken off of the clarinet this past like school year. So for me, it was kind of like oh shoot, like that's a lot of time. I should probably be learning something. But then at the same time, it's kind of like I just did a lot. I just accomplished a lot. So I deserve a break. Like, this isn't going to kill me. And the fact that I wanted to get back into music made it even easier to take that break. Because it's not like I took that break and I resented music. It's kind of like I took that break and appreciated it, but from a distance, which I think is safe to do. So that's kind of what happened to me. Whenever I have burnout, I kind of just let it happen because I personally feel like if I were to force myself to practice when I didn't want to, things it just doesn't feel right, and you could resent music. And being a music major and someone who wants to pursue music as a lifelong career, that's not something I want. I don't want to resent what I want to do. So yeah. What about you, Hannah? How have you dealt with burnout, and when last did it happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I would say the last time I experienced burnout was after my grad auditions this past spring. And whenever I experience burnout, my first question is always why. Like, why am I feeling the burnout? Why this period of time? And typically, it's for two main reasons. I mean, I've just come through 4 years of my undergraduate degree, so I walked through a couple of seasons of burnout during that time. So typically, I feel burnout because number one, I've just come through a really stressful period of time. So whether that be preparing for a recital, preparing for a jury, when I am just really intensely picking apart my playing, for whatever reason that may be, whenever I'm under that prolonged level of stress, when it's coming from myself, then I experience burnout then, because it's hard to not be able to play as freely or as readily for enjoyment. It's like it's hard to not be able to do that for a long period of time. So like when you're preparing for a recital, when you're preparing for a performance of some sort, and you're so concentrated on your mistakes and what you don't do well in your playing, when you put a prolonged focus on the things that you don't do well, then you're gonna feel burnout. You're gonna not want to practice. You're gonna not want to play your instrument. So that's like the first reason I experience burnout. The second reason is when I don't shake up my routine or shake up my repertoire enough. So I will get burnout if I spend too much time on one singular thing. So this past year or this past semester, I was student teaching, and so my practice time significantly got impacted. I wasn't able to practice for 4 hours a day anymore because I was at school. I was lesson planning. I had rehearsals. I was doing really well if I could get like an hour and a half of like my own practice time in a day. And so during that time, I wasn't shedding a lot of new rep. I was kind of just trying to keep afloat everything that I needed to keep afloat for my grad audition. So during that time, I experienced some burnout because I wasn't exploring new pieces. I wasn't getting into new music, and I got really bored, and I got really my practice started to feel really monotonous. And so one way that I can kind of remedy burnout is, introducing new music, is changing up my practice routine, changing up my warm-up routine, especially, still hitting all my fundamentals, but changing up how I do it. So, and like Alex was saying, I don't think burnout is something that we need to be ashamed of. Absolutely not. And it's a really fine line to walk whenever you choose the thing you're most passionate about for your career, because it's really hard to get away with it because you're doing it in your professional life, and then you're also doing it like in your personal life, like in your free time. Like people are like, what do you do in your free time? I'm like, oh, I play the clarinet. Oh, cool. And what do you do for work? I also play the clarinet for that too. So like it's really hard to get away from, and burnout can come about really easily then. But I think it's important that you recognize that. You ask yourself why you're feeling your burnout, and once you can answer that, then you can take steps, whether that be making changes to your rep, changes to your routine, or just taking a step back. You can try all of those things to kind of help yourself be in a better frame of mind to make music in a healthy way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And something you said is the boredom. It's like grad school auditions is the perfect example. Our last episode, it's like you play that rap for like how long? September to maybe February?
Yeah.
A long time. And to be doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's exhausting. And on top of that, that's probably music that you already played before. So it's really like, how do you spice things up? Do you introduce new music, like Hannah said, change up your fundamentals? You have to find something that works for you. I know for me, that kind of ties into like the other things you could do. I know that I tend to listen to other instruments. I don't know, that really does something for me. Like I love listening to the cello. Like I just get so inspired by it. Or even, this is so random, but like The Voice Australia, for some reason I could listen to The Voice, like episodes from The Voice, and I'm just like, wow, like the musicianship is next level, time to practice. And I don't know, that's just what that works for me. So it's kind of like, find what works for you, but like anything else out of the blue you think works for you, Hannah?
I would definitely agree. Watching other great musicians like in their element really inspires me, because like it takes you out of the, oh my gosh, I didn't do this right and I didn't do this right, and I'm never gonna be as good as this. And it kind of reminds you of like why you love music and why you like choose to put yourself through practice every single day. It just helps you get a better perspective overall.
Yeah, and I think something that just clicked to me, like maybe I don't when I'm in burnout, I don't listen to clarinet rap. Typically, I
Oh.
don't. This past burnout, I did listen to one piece that I fell in love with, but it's a piece that I like literally cannot play because it's not for sale. So I think that's why I gravitated towards it. But like I was saying, I think, and this is my new theory, maybe I gravitate towards like the cellist or the vocalist because it's not something that I recognize and can analyze. Like it's literally just me listening to it for the enjoyment of it and the appreciation of it. So I don't know, maybe there's a method to my madness because it's working. How long has it been? 4 + 2 + 3 to go. Let's make it work. But yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Like, as musicians, it's really easy for us to get into the mindset of, I hear a piece of music, so I'm analyzing it. I'm looking for what's wrong and I'm looking for what can be better. And that is a really helpful mindset when we're trying to make something better, but it's also a really harmful mindset when that's the only one that we can adopt. So, like, it's almost like we have to, like, take off our musician pants and put on our people pants and, like, just appreciate music for what it is. Like, I've been going to a lot of my siblings' band and choir concerts since graduating and being home in Pittsburgh. And it's awesome to support them, but like obviously, like, it's not like the brow or the caliber of musicianship that I'm like used to as a college musician. And I'll sit there and I'll be like proud of my siblings. I'll be like, oh yeah, they did great, but I'll be like, oh, that was a weird chord. But my sweet little grandma next to me is just like enamored with the sound. And it's because she doesn't have her musician pants on. She's not a musician. She's just an appreciator of music. And I get jealous of her because she just is in love with music all the time. She loves it so much. And I also love music, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this, but it's hard for me to be so enamored with musical performances that aren't like to a T, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a whole nother topic because it's kind of like the effects of social media too. Like our feeds are all like clarinet. So how do you separate appreciation versus criticism? Maybe that's another topic, but
I think that is another topic.
and that also brings me to something that I think we could talk about again is like ways to stay engaged. It's doing fun collabs with Hannah.
Everybody should do a fun collab with me. That's how you get engaged. No, but
They
like play
can't
with your
steal you.
friends. Play
They
with your friends.
Yeah, it's like ways to stay engaged. Play with friends.
Alex and I got started during the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think we were feeling all rosy about the world then? The answer is no. We
But
were a little
honestly,
sad.
that made me want to play that whole time.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people experience burnout because they weren't able to play with friends. And I don't even know how we got into it, but we just did it. I don't know. What is our story?
I remember. So Alex and I were supposed to play this really fun bossy duet in performance class because, okay, this is a true fact. Alex and I never performed live together as a duo at Messiah. We were
Yeah.
at Messiah together for 2 years, and not once did we perform together. So it was Alex's senior year. We were finally going to play this duet in performance class, and then the pandemic happened. We all got sent home. Alex was stranded at Messiah, and we were like, we never got to play together. We're sad. And so we were like, well, what if we made this video and we tried to play it at the same time virtually? We were like, let's try it. And if you go back and find the video, it's like so ghetto. Like I think Alex's video is like a tiny one in the corner and mine's like
I was gonna look for it.
and we both look bad, and it's just like we've come so far, but that's how we got started. But even though it was like ghetto, we really enjoyed it. It's how we got started doing this, and it was honestly, it was such a great way for me to stay connected with Alex as like friends, but also just like it really satisfied my musical need to collaborate with other artists, which is like part of why I love music so much, is because it enables me to connect with people in a really unique way.
Yeah. It's crazy because I feel like we did that just to do it. We also taught ourselves to do it like through YouTube videos and helping each other out.
So many mistakes were made.
And like look what it's become today. Like we're literally about to perform for the first time together as a duo at a big old conference. Like
Alex,
what
is
is
this
that?
our first time performing together?
And it's on the biggest stage possible for us. Like we couldn't take a step first.
Full send or no send. That's what the kids are saying these days.
Literally, like like, what is wrong with us?
You know, Alex and I have been like friends for a while, but I think even like regardless of whether we were together in person like we were at Messiah or just collaborating virtually, like our like mutual motivations have really helped the other, I would say. Like
Oh yeah.
I remember at Messiah, like I was like, oh, like I'm never gonna be as good as like, you know, insert this person here, insert this person here. Like, why should I even like put in the work? But there's Alex, like killing it, sitting next to me in wind ensemble, like every single day. And I'm like, dang, this girl is so good. She's
Bring out a
awesome.
pencil.
I gotta be
Bring
like
out a
her.
pencil.
And she never had a pencil. I'm like, well, if she never has a pencil and she's this good, maybe I can be good because I have a pencil. And so I got on it. And, you know, having Alex's positive influence in my life was really formative in those years. So find a community and a community that's going to motivate you and that you can also help give motivation to.
Yeah. I will say, like, even when I do collabs with Canna,
Is this your way of kicking me out of Venn Duo?
even when I do collabs with Hannah now, it's like we're very honest with each other, and it's like we in some of our early collabs we did some like quick fingers, quick tonguing stuff, and that's Hannah's specialty. Like she knows that off the rip. Like every time I listen to Hannah, I'm like, your articulation is fire. Your fingers just fly, and I tell her this all the time, even when I was in undergrad and I'm like a senior. What were you, like a sophomore? Like, I was just like, Hannah, how do you do that? Like, I can't do that. And it's okay to be honest with yourself in a safe space and be like, Hannah, I can't do that. Like, I remember it was one time she articulated this thing so fast for a virtual collab. I said, Hannah, it's not happening. I said, we need a new tempo. And we re-recorded it. But in that, I was motivated to be like, shoot, like I need to work on my articulation. And now I think I could keep up with Hannah.
Now she leaves me in the dust. It's not even cool.
But it's like little things like that. It's crazy to think that someone younger than you could do something that you can do, but that's music for you. Like it doesn't matter how old you are. Some people just have a better ability to execute something than yourself, and it's okay to recognize that and not feel bad about it. You could feel motivated by it instead.
Absolutely. It's all about how you perceive it. Like don't be threatened. Like there's literally no reason for that. Like
Yeah.
you can't be better than somebody else because you can't control what they do. You can
Yeah.
only control what you do. So just try and make an improvement on what you did yesterday. You know, just try and be better than you. I've heard that advice before a million times. Don't try and outplay the other person. Just try and outplay yourself. What can you do better right now? And I think that's a helpful mindset to have too.
All of it. Oh.
I think listening to other people is a really big part of it. Both clarinetists, if you feel like you're like in the place where you can digest that, and non-clarinetists, but there's also a lot of great great research and great literature like writing about the clarinet out there that I think is really informative and helpful as well. And even not just about the clarinet either. Like I remember I was really struggling with feeling motivated to practice last summer, and I ended up reading The Talent Code. I believe that's by Daniel Coyle. And that was really cool because it kind of breaks down the science of how habits are built. So he basically boiled down this idea of like, oh, this person is born with talent. And he basically brings it down to here's how they're trained and here's what they do to build amazing skills that ultimately manifest themselves as talent. And so getting that knowledge, it allowed me to take a look at my own practice and be like, what can I change up to make this like easier on myself? Like, how can I be more effective in my practice? So just seeking out stuff like that. How can you refine your processes? And then also just like stuff about the clarinet. Like, what are you curious about? Like, do you know how to do a multiphonic? Do you know what that is? If not, look it up. It's really cool and you should learn how to do it because you'll want to do it all the time. You know, just like lean into your curiosity. Like, oh, I've always wondered how to circular breathe. I can't really do it, but like, how can I do it? So yeah, just finding out stuff like that. That would be my other addition to that. What about you?
Yeah, I know a lot of people tend to read literature. Not me though. I'm just not a book gal, you know. It's kind of like for me, it's either I listen to non-clarinetists when I'm in the mood to listen to classical music, or I kind of just let myself be free. It's like lay back and relax. And I know like some people are like, But don't you think you'll like forget about it and never want to come back? I mean, maybe, but thankfully it hasn't happened to me. And I just like to get away from it because, on top of being a musician, I am a person. And a lot of the times, there was one good master class that we had while I was here at ASU for my master's. And the guy speaking kind of talked about how musicians don't know how to separate themselves from music, and that kind of creates a problem because then what inspires you when you perform a piece? What is piquing your interest? Like, what are you bringing from the real world and putting into your music? Like, sometimes it's healthy to get away from music because you need to find who you are as a person apart from music, you know? So I don't know. We could talk about like ways to motivate yourself during the summer later, but I think for me, one way I deal with burnout is to just take myself away from music. And like I said, thankfully it hasn't made me want to stay away, but it is something that I really do frequently, and I think it's healthy. Like, even when I'm in my school year in undergrad, me and my friends who are all non-musicians would hang out, just watch a movie, just relax. And I wasn't directly in music, but like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, wow, this score is beautiful. So it's like, it's still there, right? It's like I'm finding different ways and different types of music that I'm appreciating. So, yeah.
I think there's so much good in what you just said. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, if as musicians, it's really easy for us to let music become our whole life. But if music is like the representation of like feelings and sound, of like life and beauty and sound, and we aren't actually like getting out to experience any of that, then our art is actually going to suffer because the affectual that we seek to put into our music is just not going to be there because we will have nothing to inform our experiences. So it's so important that like you get out and like live a life, that you like try things and like talk to new people and go new places and just like experience the things that the world has to offer. Because like why would we have music if the world was this dull and boring place? Like, the world is not your practice room. There's nothing inspiring in your practice room. It's what is outside of your practice room that you are seeking to bring to life in your music. That's what's interesting. And I think there's a big difference between like being motivated to practice daily and then like running into like this feeling of burnout that we have been talking about. Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser, he's a music advocate, but he said something during a seminar, and it was that motivation comes after we do the thing, whatever it is that we're doing. So like before you practice, chances are you're not like burning with a desire to practice. If you are, good for you. But chances are you're not. Like, for example, I went to practice today, and in my heart, I was not like, wow, I am so excited to do this. I wasn't. But as I started practicing and as I started getting into it and things were going well, and I was like, I had a breakthrough for how this one passage I'm working on could be better, then I started to feel motivated because now I'm on a roll. And then I ended my practice session feeling really, really good. I almost didn't want to stop practicing because I was like, oh my gosh, like I fixed some things today. I made some improvements. I still have some things to work on, but I know what those things are and I know how I'm going to do it. So sometimes it's just a matter of taking that leap of faith into the initial, like, I gotta practice today. Sometimes it's just making that first step, and once you're in it, you're fine. But sometimes you do like have a deeper need for separation from music, and that's important to recognize and that's important to act upon. But I would encourage everybody, myself included, not to wait for burnout to happen to make your non-musical life a priority.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. Don't wait till burnout to make your non-musical life a priority.
Because once you hit burnout, it's like too late. It's like once you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Like, don't wait for the feeling. Like, if every day you can do something for yourself that's going to feed your non-musical needs, I think you're going to end up in a way healthier place. And burnout is going to happen a lot less frequently.
And I wonder if maybe, like, for some people, it's harder for them to deal with burnout because they haven't separated themselves from music. So when burnout happens and they're not doing music, they're like conflicted. They're like, okay, what do I do with my life?
Yeah, they're like, what do I do?
Yeah. Wow, Hannah. Boom.
We just made
Mind blown.
this together.
That was like powerful. That was powerful.
Wow, amazing. We really didn't plan this, guys. We said yesterday we had a
We're just
meeting.
gonna freestyle because it's kind of like it's just something you could talk about, and thankfully it's a safe space, so we're
Yeah.
cool with talking about it with you guys and each other. So yeah, that's that. Okay, that's the kicker. That's the point. Take that. Y'all can stop
Going,
here and leave. Like that's all that needed to be said.
going in the promo video.
Okay, so let's talk about like the summer and winter holidays. Not necessarily winter because I feel like it's shorter. It's kind of like a month ish, but summer is like 2 to 3 months. So, how do you stay, or how have you stayed motivated through breaks such as summer? And yeah, basically, how have you stayed motivated?
So during like breaks, I really try and make my fundamentals a priority. So even though I might not have brand new rep or an immediate performance that I'm prepping for, every single day I sit down and I do my full fundamentals. I do my scales, arpeggios, long tones, thirds, what have you, articulation. I really try and make sure that that stays up to snuff because if you take care of your fundamentals, then playing literally anything else will not be an issue. That's not to say that you shouldn't seek out other things to play because you definitely should, but I really try and like get back to my core, like okay, this is how I play my instrument in the best possible way. So I really focus on that. I try and get into some new etudes because I feel like everybody like hits the rose, everybody hits like there's like a million of them.
Cavallini,
No.
Cropesh.
Cropesh, yes. Like it's something weird. Yes. I feel like everybody does those, but I try and do like I try and get into a new etude book. So I've done the Kel. I really like the Kel staccato studies, really good for articulation. Right now I'm working through the Ols because I didn't get through those in my undergrad. Yeah, so I seek out new etudes and then finally I try and pick one piece of rep even if I'm not going to be performing it in the immediate future, but just one piece of rep that I haven't really touched or that I haven't worked on in depth. So for me right now that's the Muchinsky timepieces. I never got the chance to perform that in my undergrad, but it's a piece that I really like and I've always wanted to play. So I'm working on that right now. And those are kind of like my three things. I try and touch those every day. And I should also mention that I am also practicing tachycardia because Venn Duo is doing that very soon. So that's also part of the
I
practice.
thought I was gonna pass out practicing that today. I ran it like 3 times back to back.
You are a good person. That's
It didn't
amazing.
happen. I was like sweating. The AC was on. The fan was on. I was like, anyways, but yes.
We're going to need oxygen tanks on stage with us, Alex.
Oh,
What
but
about you? How do you stay motivated through the breaks?
yeah, so because I'm a very checklist oriented person. So when I have things to do, I'm going to get it done. When I have things to look forward to, like the ICA this summer, I'm going to get that done. So thinking that way for myself has really helped me, but then that's also like a byproduct of me being constantly involved in music my whole life. But yeah. Like I think it's first important to assess what you have to do, right? Because is there something you have to do? Because if there is, that's already something. So, for example, when you're in college or in grad school, like for example, ASU's Clarinet Studio, we had a audition packet. So the packet came out. That's something I need to work on for the rest of the summer. Will I get burnt out doing it? Maybe, but we talked about ways to switch that up. So that's something already that I have to do. On top of that, my professors are really good at before you leave for the summer, it's having a meeting with them to discuss what you will be doing this summer. Because when you have to do something or when it's in writing that you're going to do something, it's kind of like, okay, I can't just say it and not do it. So that has helped eliminate the feeling of what do I do? Because now I have personal rep, audition rep, and now the switch up. It's kind of like the etudes, like Hannah mentioned. I hate etudes. So in the summer, I tried to work on them. Here at ASU, Hannah knows this. It's kind of like you eat, breathe fundamentals. It's also our warm up. So I kind of mindlessly do that. And that's what kind of motivates me to kickstart my practice for the summer. Because in the summer, you have all the time in the world if you're not working, or even if you're working, right? It's kind of like, how do I start practicing? Hit your fundamentals, hit your warm up. Okay, one thing done. What's next? The fun stuff. So for me, a tactic that I do is wake up early, play it. It's out of the way. It's out of the way. It's done. And it's worked for me thus far because I think the worst feeling is being at like 2 p.m. and being like, I have to do a warm up. I really have to do a warm up right now because then that's like 30 minutes to an hour already gone. Now it's like 3, 4 o'clock, almost dinner time. I have to practice. So the earlier I could get things done, the better. Can you relate to any of that, Hannah?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely more productive in the morning as well. So if I get a really strong start, like right from the get-go when I get out of bed, like get up, like get myself ready and then play right away, that already puts me in a better mindset because now I'm starting the day not behind, but ahead in my mind. And so I cannot say enough about like waking up early and playing if you can, if your family will, put
Allow
up with it.
it.
But as early as you can, like get that warm up in because now you're ready to face the day. And even if you have to like go away and do other stuff, then you've at least like done your fundamentals and you've at least warmed yourself up so that you have like a strong foundation to start the day, if that makes sense. So like I cannot say enough about that. And like if you're a person and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like the worst thing in the world, waking up early to play my instrument." Just try it.
They say it takes 2 weeks to make it a habit, right? So try it for 2 weeks and you'll be surprised. It might just become habitual.
There's that book, there's like, it's like one of those famous self-help books, and it's like The Power of Waking Up at 5 a.m. or something like that. Like that's the title. Yeah, I'm serious. I'll have to look it up for reals, but like there's a legit book about the science of like people who wake up earlier are more successful and more productive in their professional lives than people who sleep in.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it.
I don't quote her, but I'll take it because I wake up early and I feel productive.
We feel better about ourselves. But isn't that how we define success though? Like let's be real. Something can go totally terribly, but if you feel good about it, then that's success. You know what I mean? Like we define how success is. So like get yourself to success by like feeling better about your process.
Yeah. And then something too with the whole waking up early thing. I mean, the biggest takeaway, if you don't take anything away, is to make your own schedule because I think in the summer, we have a perception that we have so much time, but we have no time. I don't know. I always feel like I'm on a time crunch. Maybe that's bad. But I always feel like I'm on a time crunch because the summer feels so long, but we're also so ambitious in the amount in which we want to take on that you have no time and you really need to realistically step back and just look at what you put on the table for yourself. Because if you don't build a schedule, you're just going to be doing things sporadically. And maybe that works for you, but for a lot of people, and I know for myself, that doesn't work. So find a way to build a schedule. Like I know for me, I said I work. So I have a schedule-ish. I know that as long as I get my warm-up in, I know that the rest of my practice will come. And if it doesn't, I at least got my warm-up, which is also my fundamentals in, right? That's a daily thing. So I have to take into account that I work for X amount of hours every day. So where do I fit in the other practice sessions? Because I tend to not work in big chunks. I work in like 30-minute chunks, basically, and I spread them out. So like for Hannah, she could speak on her behalf, but she works in person. So how do you plan a practice schedule with that, Hannah?
Yeah, it's hard, not gonna lie. I work a retail job, and so I am away from my house and like out of my house for like 7 to 9 hours every day. And when I get home, I'm tired because I was like on my feet and serving people all day. So like I'm not always like inspired to practice. But it has worked for me in the past. I kind of break my practice into day one and day two chunks. So like on day one, I have fundamentals, etude, and then this piece that I'm working on. And then on day two, I have fundamentals, etude, and then a different piece I'm working on. I keep looking over at my wall because I have my summer practice schedule from last summer up, and it looks like on day one I was focusing on recital stuff in addition to my etudes and warm-up. On day two I was focusing on competition repertoire, and on day three it was an excerpt day. So after my warm-up and my etudes, I focused entirely on orchestral excerpts, and that worked really well for me because I got away from the monotony of like the same thing every single day. I was still getting what I needed, like my fruits and veggies of my warm-up and etude, amplitude, and I was distributing even practice across all the rep that I needed to tackle. So that's just personally how I did it. That's how it worked for me. Like Alex and I have mentioned, waking up early and just getting my warm up in, getting that initial, like for me it's an hour, that's ideal. That first hour of practice in is ideal for me, just like getting that in. And then when I come home, I can kind of, gauge how my practice needs to go. Like if I have on my calendar, oh, the last time I worked a late shift, it was a day 2, so I kind of gypped my competition literature, so I really need to dig into that on today's day 2, then I can kind of balance my time accordingly and see where time needs to be better spent. Question for you. Do you have like a reflection journal or like a log that you keep of like how your practice went?
I know a lot of people do that, and I tried it, but I felt like it just wasn't something that worked for me because I would write in it and I wouldn't read it the next day to reassess like what happened. Because I feel like, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I know a lot of people love it though. Do you do that?
I just started doing it, especially when I had like during student teaching, I was getting like very sporadic, like 30-minute practice sessions in, and my practice was just feeling very disjointed overall. And so I started doing it this past semester, and I'm not going to say like my practice journal is like eloquent. Like some people take it really seriously, but like at the end of every day when like I know it's my last practice session, I'm like, okay, here's the things that went well. Here's the things that I need to work on the next time I practice this stuff. And I'll also have like a sidebar for like random notes. So I think yesterday my sidebar was your reads suck, work on new ones. Just like stuff like that, like notes to self, like, okay, like you actually need to do this. So it's been like, I'm not going to say like it's changed my practice, but it's definitely given me a little bit more accountability. There are some people that like go crazy though. Have you ever like tried the Practisma practice journal, like that 12-week thing? It was really, oh, I'll show you sometime. Everybody should check out Practisma. It's really cool. It's like a guided practice journal. It's like a 12-week like reflection on better practicing. I really liked mine, but it's really intense. Like it wasn't sustained for me, but it was really interesting, the concept. And you can look her up on Instagram. Susanna Klein. She's a violinist, but Practisma is really cool. If you're like looking for some guidance on how to start practice journaling, that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, I know some people take it like really serious too, or even some people plan their practices like very specifically before they practice. So it's kind of like I do this for 30 minutes, I do this for 50. Yeah, I don't time myself. It's like if I'm in the mood, I'm gonna just do it.
Which brings us to the conversation of like quality over quantity, which we could do a whole other podcast on that episode. But I think Alex and I are both of the mindset quality over quantity. Quantity is important to a degree, but quality is much more important.
Especially, I mean, the older you get as a musician and the more advanced you get as a musician, you start to take into account the quality over quantity because quantity just is impossible. Okay, so now I think we covered like most of what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm feeling solid on all of that.
Right? So now the only thing I want to talk about is kind of that feeling like, okay, you have a summer routine and you know what you need to do like at what hour of the day. But what if you feel like I don't want to practice? Then what, Hannah?
So don't.
Okay, we're done.
This has been the Venn Pod.
This is the Venn Pod. That's all we have to say.
No, so like what are some things that you do? You talked earlier about when you're feeling burnout, you like to put some distance between yourself and music. Like how suddenly you have like 3.5, 4 hours of your day where you are not consumed with music at every waking moment. What do you do?
Watch
instead?
Netflix.
I do too. I love a good Netflix binge. So you watch Netflix whenever you don't feel like practicing. What are your other non-musical hobbies?
I don't know. I hang out with friends. I don't have like the biggest group of friends, but I hang out with friends. If I want, I FaceTime friends. I also, sometimes I go on walks. Sometimes I go on drives. Like, I don't know, adventure time.
Absolutely.
But what about you? What do you do?
When I'm not Netflixing, that's definitely a good one. I like to unwind with a good Netflix movie, a good Netflix rom-com. I'm learning to cook and to bake a little bit better. I'm like pretty good at baking, but cooking, I have like a lot to learn. So I love like watching like videos on how to make stuff and then trying to make it. And then also like fashion and shopping. I love like fashion, and so I'll like window shop or like actually shop if my budget can afford it. And also just like hanging out with family and taking walks with my dog, and just I really love being outside, especially when it's warm and when it's summer. Like there's just something so like soothing to me about like being outside in the warmth, in the sun. This pale girl needs her vitamin D, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So this has been the Venn Pod on if you don't feel like practicing, don't. And it will be okay.
No, but yeah.
We'll catch you next time. Let us know how you deal with burnout and what you do when you don't want to practice. And tell us what you want to hear about next time on the Venn Pod.
Wait, the Venn Pod. We need glasses. Like
honestly, that would be cool. We could pass them out with our business cards.
Catch you at ICA.
See you there.